Yo, Jamie, what's up?
Not much. How are you?
Doing good. Let's get together and do a little Penn State Ohio State preview.
Sounds good.
You know,
Probably not the firepower it's been other years, but still good to see what's gonna happen.
yeah, and it's interesting. There's been a bunch of Penn State fans who seem a little down this year just because they're not having like a freight train that's unstoppable on its way to the NCAA championships.
Right. Right. Yeah, they've come back to the field a little bit now. There's not necessarily it's there's parity, but there's not parity at the top. I mean, it's kind of Iowa, Penn State, and then everyone else.
I agree with you. Yeah, and as we saw in that dual meet, it could get interesting. We've seen from Iowa a lot of aggressiveness, and in that Penn State match, and then I think it was in the Michigan match. Maybe they trained through it, maybe they didn't, but there's not a lot of bonus points when you thought they might have been able to blow their opponent out. And I think there's plenty of room in the NCAAs. And I keep hearing that the Penn State lineup may change, so we can talk about that when we get to those weights.
Yeah, I mean they have options. It feels late to be
Feels
pulling red shirts.
Doesn't it feel really late?
Yeah.
Ridiculously late.
Without
But
injury or whatever, it just feels too late to pull anybody new in at this point.
I agree with you. And I mean, I think Penn State, you know, I mean, I see them winning big, but there are some marquee matchups here that we got to spend a little time talking about. But I guess
Sounds good.
let's just jump right into 125. You
Yep.
know, you know, Heinzelman versus Meredith, both guys in need of some confidence. I have heard from someone I know who knows somebody, blah blah blah, that Ohio State might try someone new at 25. Heinzelman, I don't think has beat anybody in the top 50. He's been on a losing streak. I know he's won a couple matches recently, but I think they were like D2 and at the Greyhound Open. Like that's not going to get you anywhere. At the D1 level, whether it's his size, whether it's confidence, whether it's a combination of things.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, he's not getting it done. I mean, and he's struggling with the same quality people that Meredith is struggling with.
Yep.
Meredith has the one big win over Kolioko, but I think he had a bad loss again recently, which makes Meredith's win a little less. Or did Kolioko have a big win? I'm trying to think one way or the other.
I think he had another loss.
Yeah, I
If
feel
you're
like
hanging your hat on that Kolioko win, like, as a non-redshirt true freshman at Penn, you
yeah,
know, I mean, Meredith, to me, the body of work is just, it's not convincing. And this, I think he beats Heinzelman if Heinzelman's in the lineup just based on size. Um, but if it's,
scrappiness. Yep.
but if there's someone coming down from 33, uh, it's one of those things that, it's a toss up to me. And, it's a big time spotlight. So if Ohio State's putting someone in there Saturday night in the Big Ten who has not been in the lineup, it may cause more nerves than someone else. Don't know. Someone may step
Yeah,
up too.
and I mean, looking at other possibilities, I don't know that Jordan Decatur is going to be making 25. I feel like he was a little big. And then the other 25 pounders, Kuntz, uh, one of the Kuntz brothers is one of the options, and I feel like he's not real big either. So who knows?
Yeah,
They might just ride out the year with Heinzelman. This isn't a year they're going to do a lot, but yeah, I'm with you. I think Meredith wins by decision.
yeah, over Heinzelman. It's one of those things where Ohio State has a really incomplete dual lineup, but they got enough highly ranked guys to get on that trophy stand, in March if they fulfill their rankings at the very least.
Right.
Going up to 33, we got Roman Bravo Young versus most likely Jordan Decatur. Uh, Young has been on a tear. He had really tough competition, but he was real close in that Gross match. I think he can make more adjustments than Gross can uh, to improve on that result.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
he is just lightning quick. He had his attacks, and everybody's, the not Spencer Lee, the Iowa match, Austin
Yep.
DeSanto match.
Yep.
The game plan, and this guy's smart. When we watched him last year at the Keystone Classic, not only was he wrestling tough, but he was sitting with the coaches, coaching upperclassmen. He's a
Yeah.
student of the game. Really enjoy that.
Yeah, no, he definitely seemed all in, and like you said, I mean, he came into that DeSanto match with a game plan. He knew sit the corner, get that cradle. There was an opening there, and he hit it twice. And argue whether you want, whether DeSanto was shocked, hurt, or who knows what. But I mean, RBY had it planned, and RBY, like, I totally agree on your assessment with Gross, is that if one has the ability to adjust more, it's going to be RBY. I mean, there were scrambles and situations where you could see him changing that's where he gets a takedown. I mean, that one rear standing where Gross went almost like to a tripod on his head, it was like you could argue that was 2 points.
Absolutely. Jordan Decatur, freshman here. I think if you asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have thought he would have had a better freshman campaign so far. And look, it's the Big Ten. It's tough. And until you've gone through this part of the schedule, like no high school kid is getting anywhere near the competition unless you go into Ironman, Powerade, Beast, all of them back to back. And even then, very few guys win all those tournaments back to back.
Right.
You win one, you take third at the next. So it's just no joke, and it just shows a blue chip recruit like Decatur is taking his lumps, and I see RBY winning. I mean, Decatur is just barely above 500. I think he's 10-7. I don't track doesn't work or not track WrestleStat. Sorry, Dan. But I gotta say for Young the win for him is at least a major, and for Decatur an emotional win might be a regular decision loss.
Yeah, no, I think Bravo Young is a major, is the low end. He's going to be wanting to put up points. And yeah, Decatur, if he can keep it to a regular decision, that's kind of a moral victory. Because, I mean, looking at common opponents, DeSanto teched him, Gross majored him. So
Okay, yeah, he's not in the same ballpark. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. As we go down towards championship season, if we see RBY making some leaps, and Decatur for that matter of fact. But like a couple times, I thought RBY was going to make a leap, and then he didn't. Every once in a while, I feel like he's got a horsepower issue. So anyway, I'm a fan. I'm picking him. I hope we see Decatur at his best right now, just getting off some attacks and having some confidence, just so it's a fun match. I hope he does not try to just block and shut things down. I'm a fan of exciting wrestling. And
yeah, it's never good when the guy just balls up on the bottom and does nothing and just makes you fight for anything.
And then speaking of exciting wrestling, as we go up to 141, we got Luke Pletcher versus Nick Lee. And hopefully this is worth the price of admission by itself.
Absolutely should be. I mean, Pletcher was a PA guy who you saw coming up through. He's 3-time champ, I think 4-time finalist. He was Spencer Lee before Spencer, and he just was kind of so early on in his career. It's like he wrestled 41 as a freshman because Tomasello came back. And then stayed up, and then did 2 years at 33 and did okay. And then this year went back up to 41, and just as a different guy. I mean, absolute different animal. Just a monster, just killing people.
Absolutely.
And Lee, to his credit, has taken the jump I think people expected after his freshman year. Last year, ultimately, is kind of like a wash. It's like, all right, 5'5", no real noticeable difference. But this year, it's like he's on a tear.
Yeah, I see all the things you said. I agree with. I think Pletcher, if I mean, everybody thought he'd be down at 33, and he's up at 41. His motor is much better. We will see what it looks like if he has to wrestle the entire match hard because he's been so dominating. So is Nick Lee, but Nick Lee, we've seen him go long full matches in the past and keep his
Right.
motor up. I think the challenge last year when Pletcher beat Lee. You know, Pletcher's hips are low, and when you're not used to that level of hips, when you're taking a neutral attack, it now that he has the feel, hopefully for Nick he can make those adjustments. But when you have that low center of gravity, it makes it a lot harder to finish on some of those speed singles that he's shooting.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, but I think a lot of the Penn State guys traditionally do better after they've gotten their hands on you and they kind of get that feel and they can scout it and all that stuff. So I I mean I think it's gonna be super close. It's a tough one to call. Uh, but man, Lee has looked tough. I mean, I'll go with him on the slight advantage, but man, I wouldn't be surprised either way. Uh, if either of them wins by more than a couple, then that's the surprise
That
in
that
my
would be a
book.
statement if one of them wins by more than like 3 points and
Right.
really pulls away. I think that if there is a larger margin of victory, I think it's Pletcher. And I think that if it's a closer match, I think it's Lee. And maybe he gets a late takedown to seal the victory. And that's just my feel about how both their styles. And I know I'm not quite taking into account Luke Pletcher's new style, but these guys have been bonus point machines. I expect to see fireworks to some extent. I expect to see a lot of action. And I just think that Lee might have a slightly better gas tank. So if he can convert on the low hips that Pletcher presents, he's going to win close. On the other hand, if Pletcher is able to defend with those heavy low hips on Lee's attacks, he may be able to reattack Lee because we've seen that that's the only place I think either he is vulnerable sometimes in rushing his attacks or on reattacks. So I think Don Demas did that to him last year at NCAAs, and I think someone else too. So last year, so I'm taking Lee by 1 point.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of their head-to-head comparisons, he Lee pinned McKee and Pletcher wins by 12-6. They both majored Chad Red 8-1 versus 10-1. I mean, these are good, solid dudes, and they're both just chewing through them.
Yeah, I mean they've created real separation, Jamie.
Absolutely.
Right. I gotta say, watching the Wisconsin match and the Minnesota match on Big Ten, I thought Nick Lee was definitely. And look, these guys pay attention. They know this match is coming up, but he wanted to make sure it looked like that he outdid the results that Pletcher had versus right McKee.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so gonna be a good one. Looking forward to that. And I hate to root against the high school guy from Pennsylvania like Luke Pletcher, but I'm probably rooting for Nick Lee, but I'll be happy with either of them. The All Pennsylvania team this year, regardless of college, is looking pretty solid. They could win, like if everything broke right, they could win 8 championships.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't done the math, but I mean, just just take the Penn State Iowa duel last week. I mean, how many uh,
You,
top ranked hammers are
yeah,
going to come out of those two?
yeah. I mean, you'd have Lee, Kemmerer, possibly DeSanto right there. Vincenzo Joseph, possibly. Who else? I know.
49 is Sasso.
Yep, Sasso, without a doubt. We'll get to him right now. So 49. Uh, Going up there, we got Sammy Sasso coming in, and he has looked like he has evened out his performances a little bit, and he's on a little bit of a tear here, where he had that early two losses. One was to Brayton Lee that everybody made a lot of stuff over, and I think the other one was Moore from Virginia Tech, and but he's been wrestling really tough. He before the season started, I had him penciled in to make it to the finals as a freshman. Um, Big fan of his. He reversed that match with Lee. Maybe a couple weeks ago, and he'll be up against most likely Jared Verkleuren. Um, Verkleuren's one of those guys who is not one of the stars of the Penn State lineup. He's got world medal credentials, but he dropped a match to Brayton Lee in sudden victory a couple days ago, and he doesn't really have a signature win. His offense, kind of relies on some counterattacks. Otherwise, he might get himself out of position. And I think the one thing that his international wrestling has helped him with, I think, is blocking. And we'll be real curious to see if he opens it up versus Sasso. Because if he does, he might give up more than 3 points in a loss.
Well, I mean, I don't. I mean, Verkleuren seemed to got like nothing on his feet other than the big move, try to go upper body, and I don't. I mean, Sammy does freestyle. He's gone to Fargo and all that stuff, but I wouldn't say he's a upper body kind of guy. So maybe Verkleuren gets something there, or maybe Sasso is able to just bail out and stay in good position and just be all over his legs and not give him a chance.
Yeah. Well, I'm taking Sasso. I think his neutral attacks, I think that he'll be able to move Verkleuren. I think Verkleuren's got a great mental game most of the time, but I don't know if he's super athletic and I think Sasso from neutral, he can get to angles that most freshmen don't get to. So I'm taking him, and I'm taking him with bonus points.
He definitely is the favorite for sure. I would say, I mean, Verkleuren is good at keeping it close. He's either going to get stuck in that cradle or he'll keep it close to a decision. But Sasso wins either way.
Yeah, I don't think he gets stuck, but maybe you're right. I think he's going to give up a couple big moves where he's resisting on an attack and ends up going to his back, fights off. But as with most of these previews, I'm usually wrong. Going up to 57. Ohio State's got Cleary, and Penn State, we don't know. Gardner wrestled there versus Minnesota. Pfeiffer has been wrestling there for most of the season, and then there's always the whispers that Bergey's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Bergey's healthy, and if he is coming back, that would be great. But again, it's late, it's February 10th.
Yep.
And you're going to come back. He's had one match in December, and that's it. It's like if you want the medical, then just put chips all in and just say, all right, we're going for the medical, and we're gonna pass on this year.
Yeah.
From the fan perspective, I'd love to see him because Pfeiffer puts me to sleep. That's my bathroom break match of the lineup. Because it's like, all right, I can go to the bathroom and get a beer. I got halftime coming usually.
Right. Well, it's one of those things. I've coached three guys who have had a concussion and never come back from one solid concussion. Two of them tried to come back too early, and that was it. And the other one was just told, you can't have another concussion. All D1 athletes on scholarship. And these guys, like, because I've heard both things. Like, Bergey may come back, and I've also heard that he might be done for good. And you always want to err on the side of safety for these kids. I'm still in touch with one of those guys. This is 12 years after he's done wrestling, and he still gets headaches, right? He never had that before. So, one, you got to be 100% sure before you put him back out there again. I know I talked about it before in another podcast, but they were paying extra special attention to him during that Lehigh match in the warm-up and afterwards. And clearly, I think it was Coach Cunningham back there with him. They must have seen something, after the match. He just didn't feel right. He had a tough match against Humphreys from Lehigh, and we haven't seen him since. So I'm just going to guess that they're going to keep him out for the rest of the season, and that we're going to see Gardner instead of Pfeiffer, and this will be a toss-up. I think that actually Gardner lost close in the Minnesota match. I mean, he's given up some size coming up from 49, but
Right.
I think that he's got some. The guy from Minnesota was right number 30, and he was right there until the very end. Gave up a takedown at the end. I'm taking Gardner over Cleary.
WrestleStat agrees with you. They think the same. I don't have the inside sources like you do, so I heard it on a podcast. But there was somebody made the comment that, and Bergey's a Minnesota guy, but that he was at the Mayo Clinic, which is obviously a world-renowned healthcare facility in Minnesota. So that does not sound like somebody who's on his way back. Or maybe he was there and he got cleared. I don't know. But just the fact that the health on campus or somewhere in the state isn't enough and you're going to elite national world quality to get checked up, that makes you sound like it's pretty serious. So hopefully it's all good and he comes back when he's able to. But I'm gonna go with you on the same, that I think Gardner, we're probably gonna see Gardner again, and I think he'll scrap it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Berkey. He's got credentials, but if there's any doubt, I just hope that he just stays out, and that maybe we'll see him next year.
Right.
There's two things you don't want to hurt. You never want to hurt your brain and your pancreas. Right. Those are the two things your body does not do well with. So, all right, going up, we got Vincenzo Joseph versus Ethan Smith. Joseph is, he's undefeated, 11-0. Doesn't sound like a lot of matches, obviously, with the schedule that Penn State's put together in this Olympic cycle. He's been bonus pointing people quite a bit. I think he had a little bit of a letdown in the Minnesota match. He made a statement, I thought, in that Wick match. He rode Wick hard, and that's Wick's thing. Talk about heavy hips. If you just weigh hips, Joseph's have got to be 200 pounds, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I get some of the anti-riding time sentiment that was going around. I don't know how much you saw it, but man, people were screaming about if you want to. There's a difference between riding and stalling, and he did not appear to be attempting to turn Wick at all. And just same with when he was riding Marinelli. I mean, he's just pulling on that ankle. And it's a great ride, but man, it can get boring. And he's that's not Vincenzo. He's normally the human highlight reel out there, launching people, throwing stuff. But I mean, you're right. I mean, he wanted to make sure that was he wanted to be on top because Wick's dangerous on top, and he didn't want to put him there. And just every bit he could keep him down, he did, and win's a win, so that's great. But I don't think Ethan Smith has got anything for him. It's going to be bonus point as to whether major tech or pin.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some bad losses. He got pinned by White. Marinelli. That Marinelli match was actually kind of close.
14-10.
14-10. I watched it on YouTube a week ago, and Marinelli looked like he was trying some stuff there, and maybe made Russ a little bit sloppy. The one thing, just to get back to your riding time, I agree with you. I'm not down with riding time unless so I would get rid of it and send what you want. So if you don't want to get rid of it because you want folk style to be about control, then you can't have riding time no matter how much unless you get back points. If you don't get back points, there's no riding time, even if you're riding for 4 minutes. Because it is boring. But, we've hung our hat as a folk style community on, us being tougher than freestyle, because scoring under control is much harder than scoring under, a lack of control. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just saying Jamie is doing some funny stuff right now. Can you hear me, Jamie?
Yeah, sorry. The control aspect is legit. You want to control the guy for sure. But to your point that you don't get riding time without back points, then that kind of goes to the old rule. You don't get a tech fall if you have back. I think there's a component that you could add.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of back points. So I mean, if you everybody, I mean, I've been complaining about the push out rule and the drop down rule. You got to take the referee's judgment out of this stuff, and you really need to incent what you want more of. So if you want more takedowns, give more points for takedowns. If you want more reversals, give more points for reversals. They gave more points for back points, and I don't know if it's incented it, but it's definitely, if you tied it to riding time, I think it would be a big deal.
I feel like the back points, they almost did that to make it so easy for the fans to understand.
Right.
4 count is 4, 2 count is 2. And I don't know that it was even around in sending and giving more as opposed to it was easier to explain.
Yep. Yeah, and you want your sport to be easy to understand to get new fans.
Agreed. It just doesn't know that it gets the argument of why they did it gets confused and they misinterpret potentially some of the reasons.
Yeah. Well, I'm taking Joseph with bonus points, and I'm guessing it'll be a major, but they're at home, right? It's a state college, right?
Yeah, this is the BJC match.
Yep. So I'm just guessing, some of these guys who are older. I mean, Joseph's a senior. I don't think he's feeling any pressure, but I'm sure he'd like to put on a show. So maybe he gets to a tech, but I'm going with a major decision, Joseph.
No, I agree. Bonus for sure. Is this the last home match?
Good question, Jamie. I'll let you look that up while I talk about.
Yeah, I'll have to go look.
So going up to 174, we got Caleb Romero, most likely, versus or Rocky Jordan. Or no, he's 84. What am I talking about? Caleb Romero versus Mark Hall, and Romero is. He's a sophomore. He is, he's had a pretty good season. But he lost to Labriola, last week in a close match. Hall was winning close and then pinned him. He's got some wins over guys in the top 10, even though he's ranked number 11, because he's had some losses of guys outside of the top 10. And Hall, his only loss was the Kemmerer match. And whether he got carvered or there's not any joy in it for him, I don't know what it is. He just looks like a different wrestler since losing. And I'm just talking about emotionally, energetically, after he lost his sophomore year to Valencia in the finals. And,
Yeah, but your therapy session helped, and he came back and smashed Zahid in the duel.
Let's not talk about that. But this is one of those things where Romero, the one thing that I've seen him be a little sloppy on, I think it was in a Labriola, maybe it was a Spatafor match, which he won. On bottom, he can just be a little sloppy, hanging his head. And you can't do that against a guy like Mark Hall. Hall would definitely want to get the Bryce Jordan Center crowd going and come out front and look for something and stick him. So, Hall is I'm called clear favorite here, and his bonus rate might be the highest on the team, or at least the pin rate for Penn State. I'm not sure. I'll have my researchers look that up, but I'm going with Hall with a pin here.
No, I agree. I think he's going to get it done. And from this lineup perspective, they have this match, and then they have American the following Sunday at Rec Hall. So this is not their last,
okay,
but it's the last big one.
Last big one. The seniors' time is winding down here.
Yeah,
and I'm sure they feel it. College athletics is fleeting. It's 4 years at the minimum, maybe, and 5 at best, or 6, or for Jordan Pagano, maybe 7. I don't even know how long that guy. The way they're handing out stuff, but
hey, Caster's could be going on like 8 or 9 if he takes everything he's got available to him.
Right? They've been giving these things out like M&Ms, and there was a PA guy who was legitimately hurt a couple years ago who I just ran into, Tyson Dippery. This guy was like, right? He had surgery, and they still turned him down for a medical year. I don't know if they didn't like him, but it did make sense to me that he got turned down while they're giving this stuff away, and just it's so subjective, and that's why they got to take it out of these guys' hands. You should just have 6 years to compete, and you can and
Yeah,
four
I feel
four
like
championships.
I feel like, and I forget how when Dippery applied, but there appeared to be a year where it started to like when they started with the transfer portal, and all of the scales are leaning in the favor of the athlete. The transfer portal, you're hurt, you want another year? Fine, you got another year. And so I'm wondering if Dippery just missed out by a year, or maybe, like you said, they just don't like him.
Maybe, yeah. I'm old enough that everything kind of blurs together after the preceding year. So last year and before is all just a blur. So I don't know when I think he graduated 2 or 3 years ago. So,
Okay.
so he may have been just at the end of them being real sticklers, just
Yep.
before the floodgates opened. But
Yeah, because like Grant Leith is like in his 4th year, and he's a freshman or something. I
right,
mean,
right,
and hell, Michik, this is his second Olympic red shirt, right?
right.
And he's a junior.
It's right. It's getting crazy, and they just need to do something about it. So there's not all these. The more rules you have, the more rule breakers and criminals you have. Give them 6 years of eligibility, 4 years of postseason. That gives you an automatic injury shirt if you need it, and a red shirt if you want it, and
Yeah.
you can use them any way you want. But take all the complexity, take the control out of it. It's just like the judgment that these referees have, where they call it one way one match, or one way in one period and a different way in another period. Just let everybody know what the rules are, and it's not going to be subjective. It's just to these rules that are they're not open to interpretation. Oh, he was injured. Just give him 6 years and 4 years of the postseason. You have less forfeits.
Well, that goes to I think Kerry Cola has been the biggest one pushing on the follow the college football pattern of you can play in 25% of your games without losing your red shirt.
Yeah, I
Uh,
I'm open to that, but there's so little money in wrestling that you could possibly use up. All I'm saying is forfeits are dual killers,
oh,
and
absolutely.
and if you have someone in red shirt and you can put them out there because your starter's banged up, it shouldn't penalize one the wrestler and two the team in the long run. So NCAA, wise up. I know you're not really down for the health of the sport of wrestling, but you got to make some adjustments.
I'll agree 100%.
All right, going up to 84. I'm guessing it's gonna be Rocky Jordan instead of Hoffman and Aaron Brooks for Penn State. Any thoughts on whether it's Jordan or Hoffman?
Considering I just heard Hoffman wrestled heavyweight at the Clarion Open,
Okay.
I'm assuming it's going to be Rocky Jordan.
Oh well, then I think you're right. Wow, I did not. I've not been paying attention.
I heard it on a podcast. Like I
Oh,
said, I was floored. I'm like, you're kidding me, because uh, their speculation was maybe he thinks he can beat Traub and Gaston Gary, and that's why he went up.
right, because he's not beating Colin Moore,
Right.
and you know, uh, you know, Moore is a senior, but you
And
know he doesn't
is
want to
he
lose this season possibly.
is he a senior or is he a junior?
You can check it out while I talk about Aaron
Yeah.
Brooks. Brooks is having a pretty good season. They pulled him out of red shirt for the was it the Lehigh match, and he has had he's only lost one match. He's lost to Taylor Venz from Nebraska, 9-5. I think that Venz presented some challenges to him on his feet. I without divulging too much, I'm not sure that Brooks is 100%. He's not as silky smooth in his neutral attacks as he has been. He's got a pretty big wrap up on his leg, although it's not a brace. I think that his win over Abe Assad showed something, and it wasn't close. Like Assad was not going to get a takedown in that match. I mean, he had some attacks and there was some contesting there, but Brooks had all the best attacks and was able to finish in the scramble. So I really think that he's a legitimate, high AA right now for Penn State, and it's just a matter of whether or not his leg will allow him to be crisp on his attacks going forward. I think he's a clear favorite in the match, and it's really just a matter of how healthy he is and how big the score he can open it up.
No, I agree. I think he's totally legit at 84, full-time AA for sure. Now, is he in the 5 through 8, or can he break into the 2, 3, 4 range? Because there's a tier, there's Zahid, and there's everyone else. And Assad beat Venz, I think. So now some people are saying it's Brooks, Assad, Venz, but it's hard to say. I mean, but yeah, he's looking good. I mean, he's got the pedigree. He's that kind of guy that's supposed to get better in the room all year long as it goes. So yeah, I'm all for Brooks taking this one. Probably it's going to be decision pushing Major, but I think he'll be too much for him on his feet. Too dynamic.
Yeah, he lost to Assad close. I think it was a one takedown in the third period. And I think that was on was that in the Big Ten Network? I think I remember seeing it. I could be wrong. Could have been whatever 4-2 or 3-1. But I just think Brooks has got way too much from neutral, even if he's not 100% on his attacks. I think his level changes are super crisp. He glides in that level change, and a lot of times when you see guys try to defend it, they almost whiff on his attack. And the thing that made me think that maybe his leg is a little more banged up than maybe is apparent is that the Assad match, he just was not able to get as deep as quickly. And, that's just something that you got to, as a freshman, he's working through that. And I know he's not your typical freshman because he had a gray shirt and he was at, the OTC and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And he's clearly not too banged up because he wrestled, Wisconsin and Minnesota on the road, and they didn't give him any time off. And he didn't get a ton of matches already because they pulled him out late. So he's only got 11 matches probably. So I'm taking him. I think he's going to get a major over Jordan. He's going to feel the energy coming from the Hall and Joseph match, and keep the crowd going.
No, I agree for sure. Just a real quick update on Gavin Hoffman. After Zahid tried to kill him and try to just murder him in that match, he has wrestled 285 at the Purple Raider Open. He was 3-0. The Edinburgh Open, he was 4-1. And the Greyhound Open, he was 4-0. So I don't, aside from Edinburgh, I've never heard of the other two. Right. But he is like 10-1, 11-1 at heavyweight since Zahid tried to kill him.
That's interesting. So he's going to be going after Gas Tank Gary. You better get your shirt while the collector's items are lasting.
I guess. Yeah.
So what might silence the crowd a little bit is 197.
Yeah.
So, if Rashid was 100%, I would think this is a competitive match. It's been kind of competitive in the past, 7-4, 6-4, something like that. But Rashid looks like a shell of himself right now, and Moore does not. Moore looks good. I think he could probably push himself a little bit more and get bonus. I feel like he's close to bonus a lot and doesn't push for it. But Rashid, on the other hand, I mean, he, was it the Minnesota match or Wisconsin match? He was wrestling two guys in both of those matches who were not super good. I guess it was Minnesota. The guy is ranked like number 80, and he won by 2 points. And at the end of the match, he was gassed and
Yeah.
out of position. It's just not looking good. And we talk how late it is to pull a red shirt. I cannot imagine Penn State pulling Michael Beard right now. It doesn't give him enough time. Um,
No.
and he doesn't have a traditional red shirt either. He's already had a red shirt or a gray shirt.
Right.
Um,
Oh yeah.
and people are not quite as high on him as I had been. He lost to Laird and Traxler, most recently. But I got to figure it's going to be Shakur Rashid, and based on Moore's lack of pushing for bonus points. I mean, against good guys, he can bonus guys who are not good. But when he's facing guys in the top 20 and he's got a 7-point lead or a 5-point lead, he's not chasing it down. I'm still taking Moore, and a win for Ohio State is bonus points over a banged up Rashid, and a push for Rashid is just a regular loss to me.
No, I agree. Rashid, like you said, a shell of himself. There's no top game. That's totally gone. I don't know what happened. If he's still not full size, back up from being down at 84, which kind of defeats the argument of him not wanting to cut weight to make 84 or any of that stuff that was going around. But he just does not have. He's not the same guy that we saw at 97 that was an All-American 2 years ago. Or even the same guy last year before he hurt his knee.
Yep. Yeah.
He just is like, he's good enough that he can beat the average guy, but he's just not even competing well against the top. So Moore could make him look bad. I'm hoping he can hold to a major, but yeah, it's hard to say. It's not been a good swan song for Rashid.
Yeah, coming back for that extra years, it's been tough on him. Whereas, Colin Moore, he's faced a bunch of studs this year, and he keeps winning, and that's what he's supposed to do. So I think what he's going to be able to do is attack. Rashid has that low ankle mobility or muscle mass in his calf. He just can't defend a low attack. And I think Moore is going to pick his ankles. That's what or at least get on a low single. Something low that he can't defend. And if he wants to, I think he'll be able to do it not at will, but pretty easily. So, I'm taking Moore, and I'm going to go with it's going to be a regular decision, but you never know.
Okay, yeah, and you're right. He is a senior.
He's a senior.
Yep.
Going up to the big guys, I'm assuming it's Seth Neville's, no matter what other rumors I've been hearing. And
what would they be?
Well, I mean, there's there's been video floating around that Kasser's wrestling live in the room.
Okay, I mean, they said he was going to work to get healthy for the trials in April.
Yeah.
So there was never any statement of he's done, he's this or he's that. Now, you pull a kid's red shirt, or you going to put him in? Who knows? I mean, but yes, I mean, there's no doubt that he is going to be working and training and trying to get healthy. It's just a matter of what is the intent.
I agree with you, and there's no Penn State doesn't need him here. But if he would come back for the NCAAs, he needs more than 2 or 3 matches that he's wrestled this year. So I'm guessing it's Seth Neville's. Neville's is he didn't look super great against Cassiope in the Iowa match. It just didn't look like he had the technique. Didn't know how to keep pressure on during those scrambles, and it was clearly a field that Cassiope was very comfortable with. So, then losing to Stevenson, it was a major decision. Didn't really have an answer for the Stevenson's power, and kind of double direction of power where he's hanging on you and going low or picking. Anyway, Neville's is not again your traditional red shirt freshman because he's had a gray shirt. Um, so did he have two gray shirt years? And yeah, I think
I
he's
think
going to
just
beat
one. I
just
think that whole crowd had one. They all kind
okay.
of equally sat.
And going against Gary Traub, I mean Gary Traub, he's I don't want to say he's had his moment of fame, but he is. I just don't think he's in the same caliber. Now, if Hoffman's up there, he at least I think can wrestle the position, but I
He's
don't
going to
know
be
that.
mobile. Yeah.
Say that again.
He's going to be a little more mobile.
Yes, he's good. So
Yeah.
I'm taking Neville's against both of them. One, I think that Neville's will have a cardio edge if Hoffman's up there. He might not have it against Gas Tank Gary. On the other hand, I think he's just got a wrestling advantage on Traub that is not overcomable.
Yeah, Neville's has been so close. I mean, if you look at the shot he had on Cassiopeia, leg in the air, he was just needing to finish it right and clean. And I didn't see the Stevenson match, but I heard there was kind of something similar. And it's like, if he can just finish those, that's a huge difference in those matches.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't see Traub being anywhere near the athletes the other two guys were to be able to defend those and stop that.
Well, I think for Neville's, a win is to get bonus points on Gas Tank, and for Traub is to hold it to a regular decision loss.
Right. Yep. That makes sense.
I don't know what Neville's. He has a few bonus points matches. Doesn't have a ton of pins against anybody of note, so I just can't see him pinning them. But an attack would be like he would really have to be. That's a lot for a heavyweight. So I'm taking Neville's with a major.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Neville's is going to be able to do cut and release, and to kind of move him around. But to your point, that's going to be a lot of takedowns to get to attack.
Do you think Tom Ryan is going to want to draw for a weight class?
How that goofy rule works this year, to be honest. But I feel like Ohio State has been mixing it up more than others. Where Penn State is pretty much hard line 25, 25, 25.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see them wanting to start at maybe at 97 possibly and avoid the murderer's row a little bit, diffuse the crowd, and hope that Romero that gives Romero a little more what's the word, and Jordan a little more psychic energy that as opposed to just having Penn State run through them and be down 6-1 in matches by the time they get to them.
The only thing I could say is maybe Penn State would look to start at 84 and let Rashid and Hall have a nice send-off in front of the large crowd of the BJC. Maybe. Do something like that.
That would be a pretty fun thing to do. Give your seniors as much glory time as possible. And I've always been a proponent of mixing up the order. And no one that I know likes this, but it comes from fighting. And if you really wanted to showcase something, maybe have Lee and Pletcher be your final match. But
that definitely makes sense to do that. So I'm just trying to think how if they did 84-97, that would be the start of the second half. If they started 84,
yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. It could just be boring, straight up 25, but they have choices for sure. Especially while it's not the final home match, it's the big final home match.
Yeah.
But they kind of downplay using the BJC and all that stuff. But so maybe they'll wait and do all that against American at home, which is kind of in theory should be a walkover.
Well, I'm going 8 matches to 2 for Penn State, 28-7.
Yeah, no, I don't see where else they're going to get wins.
Well, they could. I mean, I'm giving Penn State the Lee match, and that's really a toss-up if you ask me. But I'd be happy with either one of them winning because I'm a Pennsylvania fan.
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt. I don't have anything against Fletcher. I'm actually really happy to see how awesome he's done this year because he was kind of that slow, kind of boringish wrestler to start with, and now he's just like turning it up. So it's good.
All right, Jamie. Anything else out there for the wrestling world?
Nope, that's it.
All right,
Go wrestle.
I'll see you at Prep States on Saturday.
Hey, I'll be there Friday.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, man. Later.